So today we will go through the, so far we have seen the SQL more in a statement level programming. Whatever that you have performed, even though they are complex tasks, they perform complex tasks on the underlying database. They do not involve any programming constructs such as conditional statements, loops, loop structures, functions, parameters in passing that are getting passed in the functions and so on and so forth. However, in regular programming languages, you have seen all such kinds of constructs, declaring variables, initializing variables, and so on and so forth. And in SQL also, this programming is allowed, and it actually, these are all what are called in these databases as stored programs. Not programs, but stored programs. Why? Because the reason is that programs are also stored in the databases itself. They will not be residing on your file systems. They all reside on your databases. And stored programs is a generic term which is used for various elements, not a single element, but various elements, namely stored procedures, stored functions, triggers, events, and other things. Right? So far we have seen triggers. Today we will look at stored functions and stored procedures. There are some differences in each of these things, stored procedures, stored functions, and triggers. We'll also look at those, what these differences are. They reside in the database main memory and then execute the moment they are all invoked, explicitly or otherwise. And then these will give us a greater flexibility in maintaining the complex integrity constraints and also improve the application performance. Why? Because we will actually look at that one. I mean, at this point in time, maybe we may not be able to understand why it will straightforward improve the application performance. But with few examples, we'll understand these things. It will also improve the maintainability because you do not need to maintain several programming elements. One is in MySQL, one other is in PHP, one other is in Python, another is in. Hello? 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 Okay. So what is a program or function stored program? Is a computer program having series of instructions, MySQL instructions. Source code is held within the database system, and they all execute within the. This is more technical point. We will not look at that one as of now. The way that you invoke the stored procedure is that a generic program unit that can execute on its execute on request. So you have to explicitly call them stored procedures, and parameters can be passed, and then you can pass multiple parameters as input, and then get multiple parameters as output. Stored functions, on the other hand, see, there are two elements that are we are discussing. One is the stored procedure, another is the stored function. Stored procedures, they need to be called explicitly. You have to request to execute them, right? And you can pass multiple inputs and then multiple outputs. That is about stored procedures. But stored functions, you do not need to call them explicitly. The moment you essentially write that one, it is understood and then it gets called. They are very similar to the stored procedures. The constraints, there are several constraints. Why stored? There is a difference between a function and a procedure. We will look at that one. And in fact, you can embed these stored functions in your select statements as well. Right? That flexibility is there. So SQL can be extended to any complexity by embedding into, not embedding, but by including into the select statements. Of course, triggers are also form of stored programs, but their invocation you have by now you have understood, they will not be called explicitly, and even you cannot even call them explicitly. The only way that you can call them is that by performing the operation insert, update, and delete statements. Right. So one thing you have clearly understood: triggers are automatically activated, but others, depending on different flavors, they gets invoked in different ways. We'll look at those things. So why this is another language is this is a philosophical thing. I will not go into this one. And an advantage also I will not go into this one. We'll straight away come to this thing because of the constraints on time. But by the way, let me just give you a very important announcement. Is that on Thursday, 11th February, we will not have the class on the regular time. Okay, so that is one of the announcements. And then since we have an exam on 18th, so we will be having 16th and 17th at the classes. That's what is the main thing. Any questions? Okay. So in the stored procedures, stored functions or triggers, you have to use variables. So far you have seen the use of tables, and tables themselves by themselves are holds many values, not a single value, but variable, as you all understand, they can only hold one single value, right? So now there is a complete differentiation that tables are completely different, variables are their own flavors are there, they can hold only one inbuilt system defined inbuilt value. And the way that you declare variable is using the keyword declare, and then you specify the variable name and then specify the data type. Example is declare first var, this is my variable name, it is of type integer, and value needs to be also assigned. You can assign a value saying that if you declare the statement in this fashion, declare first var int, since it has not explicitly initialized any value, it will be initialized with a null value. However, you can at the time of declaration you can assign values. The way that you can assign values is that declare first var, it's of type integer, and default value is 0. So which means that value 0 will be assigned to the variable. So more examples with respect to the variable definition declarations are declare var1 in which is of int, default is some default value. Variable 2 is a float variable. Variable 3 is a double variable. Variable 4 is a date. It's a date. It holds a complex attribute which essentially is a date of this form. So we can assign variables. See here at the time of declaration you are assigning some values, but can you override the values? Yes, you can do that one. The overriding is your assignment statement in your regular programming language such as C. In regular programming language you will not use any other prefix, but here you have to explicitly say set variable name to any expression that you wanted to set. So example is set var1 to 10. Example 2 is set var to 10.0001. Example 3 is set var to this particular another date. So here is what you are actually variable 4 is of type date, and then you are actually specifying the data. Now you very carefully look at the implicit conversion is taking place, and if something is being quoted in terms of single quotes, you can interpret it as a text, you can interpret it as a string, you can interpret it as any other forms, but they are all will be appropriate data conversions will be taken place to assign the value to var4. So there are many other things that go behind the scenes, but as of now, we'll assume that even though it's a string, it will internally do some computations to convert it into data. So having understood variables, we'll look at, since we are talking about procedures and functions, each of the procedure and function can take parameters. Just like your C functions, you can write a function and pass some parameters into this function. Likewise, we can actually do that one. But there are constraints to this function passing the parameters to the functions. There are three types in which parameters can be passed. First one essentially is that you can pass parameter by saying that it's only read-only parameter, which means that value must be specified by calling program. At the time of calling a program, you should actually pass the value. Modifications within the stored function programs cannot be done. So you cannot change the value within, even though you can change the value within a procedure or function, it doesn't get reflected in those who are essentially calling outside the scope. We'll go through each of these example. Don't worry if you don't understand what these are at this level. Out is that those that written values needs to be passed. I mean, in C programming language, you say written some value. You are written maximum value. That is what you will essentially specify. But here there is no written statement that you will be explicitly making. You will not be having a written values. Written statements are there, but there are no written values. The values that you will have to write and then pass it on to whoever is calling is through out parameter. In-out plays both the roles of in and out. We'll get through some example. The first example of the stored procedure is that we create a procedure named demo in, and then here we are actually saying a variable one var1. It is of type integer, and the type of the variable var1 is in, which means that it is only a read-only parameter. Var1 is read-only a parameter. And you have begin and end block, which actually says that stored procedure begins from here and then ends here. And what is it that you are actually trying to do is that you are printing the variable one. You are trying to see what is the contents of the variable. You modify the contents of the var1 to another value. And then you see what is the value over here. It actually still says that you have modified value. It will still say that it's modified value. But the moment it actually goes outside the program, it will not actually do anything. So let me just look at it. 1 minute. So let me just see. You cannot actually modify them. So we'll see what is it. So I have to call this program demo in because this is just a procedure. I have to call it explicitly. So I will have my own variable, and then I am passing this variable in demo in, and then I explicitly do a call, explicitly perform a call statement. So I am calling this procedure demo in with variable one, and now you see what is the value over here. The first line is essentially initializes a value to 1, and yet my var specifies that it's a global variable. It actually is appeared in all the places, irrespective of where they are. So now we go to this program. You have passed a variable 1, value 1. So it will print value 1. It has reset the value of the variable var1 to 2. It will print 2. And once again, you are actually printing what is the value over here. It will print 1 because this is only read-only variable. Here you may multiple times modify the variable, but outside the scope, when this entire procedure gets completed, After that, so essentially this statement has completed. After this one, when you look at what is the contents of myvar, it will still be 1 because it's a read-only variable. So we'll see output variable where you can actually write some values to the output variable. So once again, I will create a different procedure, create procedure demo out, in which I am designating var1 as a output variable. And then I see what is the value initially being passed to the demo out program, and then reset it, and then print within the procedure. And I do the same thing over here at the MySQL terminal. First I set the value. I call the demo out by passing the value 1. And then after executing this demo out procedure, I see what is its value. And then you see that value gets modified to 2 because here, not only here it actually modifies the value, but at the end, whatever is the value variable 1 takes, that value will be retained by myvar. So you are able to pass values from a computation out of a procedure and to whoever is calling. Whoever is calling is your MySQL. Here in this particular case, you are calling from the MySQL terminal. At that point in time, it gets reflected. Otherwise, also you see the reflected values in whoever is calling. There are places where you wanted to do both input and output variables, read, write only, read and write, a variable to be read and write. And it actually performs the same. In this particular example, it performs the same way of out variable. In this particular thing, you don't actually see any specific differences. Okay. So having understood a little bit about stored procedures, we will see what is a stored function. So stored procedure, the way that you create is that create procedure, and then you write a name of the procedure and then pass some parameters. Begin and end are the block in which the sequence of SQL statements are all under this demo in and out, or let's say your stored procedure name, and they need to be get explicitly called using call statement, the call let's say constructor. Stored functions are there. They actually do not need to be done this particular kind of explicit call. We'll see what they mean to be. And they occur in both inbuilt fashion as well as user defined functions can be created. First we'll look at inbuilt functions. When we say functions, the stored functions, you can map them exactly to your C programming functions, inbuilt functions. For example, you have written you have invoked a function absolute value. Give me the absolute value of a variable that has been passed. Or you say that what is the value of sign value of this particular variable. Or you might have invoked built-in functions of the C libraries. You can think very similar to library functions over here when we discuss in terms of built-in functions. So there are 4 types of built-in functions are there: string functions, mathematical functions, date and time functions, and other functions, miscellaneous type functions. By their name, they perform the tasks as described over here. We will see first string functions. So you can now, I'm giving you an example, select roll number. I'm using a concatenate function, concat surname, first name and last name. I am concatenating surname with a space, first name with a space and then last name. Whatever is the output of this function is renamed as a full name, variable full name, from the student where the department belongs to EEE, which means that in the students table, it goes to every row, picks up the surname, first name and last name columns of that row, and then appends the space in all the columns in that particular row, in all the 3 columns in that particular row. For example, first surname is V, first name is Vijaya, then last name is Saradi. Then it actually concat function says V space Vijaya space Saradi, and then as full name where department is triple E. So it will go to every row of this table, perform these tasks. So roll number 1, 2, 3, V Vijay Saradi from who belongs to triple E department. That is what is the main thing that actually does. Now the first thing that you please understand is that this function is being called in the select statement. You have not explicitly performed a call operation. So that is the first and foremost difference between stored procedure and a stored function. The second thing is that you have not stored function returns a value which actually is a result of concatenation. V space Vijaya space Saradi. It's a value that is written by the concat function. And that value must be returned. It is unlike your stored function, sorry, unlike your stored procedure, where that output, no, parameter decides which variable returns a value. But here, unlike stored procedure, stored function must be said, specified a return value, mandatory. So these are the differences. There are many other differences. For our task, for this particular moment, we will think that these are the 2 differences. Similarly, you can invoke mathematical functions, roll number, and then absolute, get me the absolute value of the quiz 1 marks. So it will visit every row of the student and then picks up the quiz 1 marks column and then computes the absolute value, prints the roll number and then the absolute value of quiz 1 marks for those who belong to BSB department. So which means that you, without even explicitly performing a call statement, you are able to, MySQL is able to understand that this is a stored function and it will call that one. Similarly, you can perform mathematical functions around SPI to 2 decimals. That's what is the main thing. So you can perform date and time functions. Give me the day name given the particular date. So it gives several, there are several functions, built-in functions. We are giving as an example. So you can perform many operations. You add date, you subtract date, you perform interval additions, you perform interval subtraction, whatever it might be. Any questions over here? If there are no questions, then we'll go to the important elements of the functions and procedures, blocks and conditional statements, and then loops. Blocks, as you have seen in your C programming language, C++ programming language, or any other programming languages, it actually defines the scope of the variables. So is the case over here. When you say int compute max is a function name in C programming, I'm saying int compute max between variable A and variable B. You begin with curly brace and then end with curly brace. That is a block. But here in MySQL, you will explicitly state that using begin and end blocks. So over here, if you look at here, I have a begin and an end. This describes a block, and within this block, whatever is the variable that you have declared, their scope only lies within this block. Outside this block, either outside or means on top of this procedure statement or on the bottom of the procedure statement. On the top of the begin statement or on the and at the bottom of the end statement, this variable's scope will be not seen. So that is what is the main idea behind the blocks. And they are useful in defining variables within blocks that you have seen in your any other programming languages. Variables within blocks are not visible outside the blocks. That is what is the main thing. And the way that you have to do within the blocks is that this is the thing that you have to adhere to. These are the rules that you have to adhere when you are declaring a block. You have to see there is an order in which you have to define things in the block. First and foremost thing is that variables and conditional declarations must be defined. All the variables that you are using within a block must be defined, or all the variables that you are using in a stored procedure must be defined at the beginning of the block. This is the first thing that you have to do. Next, conditional declarations that you have to do. What is the meaning of it? We'll talk when there is an example. You have to declare all the cursors that are there. We'll look at the cursors in the next class. You have to declare all the error handling scenarios at the beginning of the block. Then you can write your code. Violation of any of this order will result in an error, which means that even if you swap within these orders, it will result in an error. I will actually first declare a exception handler, then I declare a cursor, it's an error. I declare a conditional declaration and then define a variable, then it's an error. First variables needs to be defined, then conditional declarations, then cursors, then the exception handlers. So this is the only difference from your conventional programming language. So once again we'll look at begin and end. This is the block. You define all the variables, variable declarations you complete, conditional declarations, cursors, and then error handlers. Then you can write your program. Whatever is the entire program that resides within the block that you need to be written over here. So one example we'll look at procedure 1. The only thing that I have over here is that variable. So this is a correct order, and then actually it's a correct block structure. So declare variable 1. It's of type int and then default value is 10, and it's only thing that is there. So we'll look at the other things. Since we have not discussed, we'll postpone a little for a little while. We can have nested block structure, just like you have nested for loops, nested if loops. We can actually have nested block structures. The way that we can do is that even within nested block structures, the order must be honored. Whatever is the order that I have specified, it must be honored. And the way that we have to do is that first I'm declaring a variable over here, and that is all, right? And then now I actually have another block. So I declare another variable, and that is the only thing that is available in this block. Then this is the program statement. So now you please pay attention to the variable, inner variable, its scope is only within the inner block only. If you try to invoke it's outside the inner block, it results in an error. Whereas outer variable, its scope is within the block that is in the outer block structure. So this is also correct. So this function F1 stored function is a completely honors the rules of these block structure declarations. And they also honor the scope of the variables. There is no issue. Whereas F2 results in an error statement. Why? Because I have an outer variable, I have an inner variable. I am overriding the inner variable, or I am performing the assignment of the inner variable over here. There is no issue. I am once again reinitializing this outer variable. There is no issue. But here I am using inner variable in the select statement. Where is this inner variable? Is in the block, inner block. So this becomes an error statement. It actually says that function F2 says that I do not know what this variable, inner variable is. Right? Because the inner variable's scope is within the inner block structure. So you can have similar complex nested block structures. So we'll see outer block, the inner block structure with using another example. I can rewrite the variables of the outer variables within the inner blocks. So I have a variable, outer variable, and in the inner block structure, I am using that variable. It's correct statement. because outer variable scope is within the block structure over here, from here to here, which means till the end of the procedure F3, the outer variable scope will reside. So here, is it mandatory that variables in the outer variable and inner variable should be distinct? It is not the case. In this particular example, what is being discussed is that I have a variable, my variable, declared in the outer variable, outer block. In the inner block, the same variable name is used, but it knows that these two are two different variables. Because as soon as the scope ends within the inner block structure, this variable no more be available. Only this variable will be available, right? Just like you have used your nested for loops, same variable name can be used, but you have to exercise caution over here. So we'll look at how to leave blocks. We'll look at this one a little bit later. I'll come to this one a little bit later. But first, let me just talk about conditional statements, particularly if statement. So in this particular example, I am using a stored function in which I am trying to examine the value of sale value. If it is more than 200, I call a stored procedure, apply free shipping to the sale ID. If the sale value is more than 500, I once again call another stored procedure, apply discount. So these are the ways in which you can perform the conditional statements. If then, and then you at every end of the if statement you must say end if. So if then end if then end if. That is how you have to write. And since it's a function, you do not need to explicitly call using call statement. Instead, you can say select customer name, S and D, sale ID, sale value from customer, which means that it will immediately compute all these things. And then whether it will understand whether it has to do free shipping or apply discount through this function, and then from the customer's table it will do whatever it has to do. So these examples shows the use of the if statement. It is not necessary that you have to use, let's say you can use any SQL valid SQL statement within these structures. So here I create a function F6, and then if the CPA is greater than 7, I select from all the students who are from EEE and then display their roll number and name. This gives me all the students from the EEE department whose CPA is greater than 7, their roll number and then their name. Else if CPA between 5 and 7 from BSBE, I am actually displaying that one. Else I do this one. So this example shows the utility of if then else if kind of structures. Identical to or if not identical, very similar to your C programming language that you have seen. The only difference is that we are actually using some within these if statements. Here you have the ability to use the SQL statements. So in equivalent to your switch case, here you can use case structure. So you can specify if then else will becomes a little bit cumbersome and complicated. You can use a case statement, and in case when a condition meets, then you specify the set of statements. These are the optionals, and then let's say end. Example is the same thing. I'm saying that function 7, it takes a input variable, it takes another input variable, and then it generates, it takes enumerated data type, just like your enumerated data type in C programming language, enum data types. Same is case over here. It's also an input variable. So what is it that I'm trying to check is that case when sale value is greater than 200 and customer name is platinum, as a customer status is platinum, then I do shipping and then discount. I apply free shipping and then apply discount. The example, what it actually tries to convey is that the use of the case when statement. This is what you have to take it out of this particular example. Right? So you now please carefully look at case when then. So if this particular statement results in a true, if this particular expression results in true, then you perform whatever is there within this block. Similarly, if this particular expression results in true, then you perform whatever is there within this block, and so on and so forth. When none of these when statements results in a true value, only then you come to the else statement and then do all the statements that are over here. This is equal to your switch statement default case in the switch statement. Okay. Then we'll look at the loop structures.
Hello? Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Prakash.
in the previous slide, I have a doubt.
Here?
Sir, in this when and then block, should we write begin and end because like these two statements are being executed, or there is no requirement?
No need. See, this case, the syntax for the case is such that it will look at when then. That is all.
So inside when then there is no need to write begin and end, right?
No need.
Okay.
No, even if you write, it is not a incorrect statement, but it doesn't let's say required.
Okay.
Is not required. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in the last slide, in the
This one?
yes, sir. Before declare dummy, there is a begin statement, sir. For that also, we need to write an end statement, I think.
You are correct. Correct.
Okay, sir.
Any other question? Okay. If there are no questions, then we'll quickly look at the loop structures. Loops, as you have seen in your C programming language, there are several loop structures: do while, for, while, and so on and so forth. Do while essentially is equivalent to repeat until equal to do while. While is equal to your while statement in your C programming language. Loop statement that you have not seen in your C programming language. That is the only thing that I will emphasize. So here at any statement you can give a label, and at the end you can actually say end loop, which means that I'll give you the syntax over here, then you will be able to understand. So in this F8 procedure F8, I am saying that over here between this one and this one, this entire thing is in the loop, and the loop essentially is understood by the label over here, my loop, and I am saying that loop begins from here and loop ends here. And then the end of the loop where it should end, where it should take me the control to is my loop. So it actually end of the loop will take to my loop. So over here it will take, which means that all these statements will be executed in a loop fashion till this is results in a true, and then it will kind of leave the loop. So leave essentially is equivalent to break statement in your C language. So when I say leave my loop, it actually only breaks this loop. There might be another loop. We'll look at that one, right? Over here, it will only break this loop, my loop, and then come back. So what it does is that it will increment the value of y till it reaches value of y reaches 10. That is what this program does. So repeat until, very similar. There is no issue over here. Right? You can, these are all more self-explanatory things. So repeat until this particular statement is results in true. You repeat this particular loop. And in the while expression, identical to your C language, loop and then end while. So essentially, you loop through these particular statements. You can have loops within loops. That's what this example is all about. I have outer loop and I have inner loop. And then if I leave this inner loop, I will still be in the outer loop. And if I leave outer loop, I will then leave the end, all the loop structures. That is what that tries to do. Right? So you can have any kind of you can include any kind of statement as long as these are all allowed. As a SQL programmer, I can drop a table, I can create a table, I can insert rows into the table that has been created over here in the while fashion. So that is what this particular simple SQLs will perform in these procedures. So before going into the cursors, are there any questions? Okay, so far so good. We'll look at then what is called as cursors. So should I continue in this class or should I take up this one in the next class? Because we have very little time. If I start, I have to complete this one in a hurry fashion.
Next class.
Okay, sure. Okay then, thank you.
Sir, what is the syllabus of the quiz?